This is pre-calculus notes on section 7.3. I'm looking for the title. 7.3, amplitude of sine and cosine. Okay, make sure everything that's on this page is in your notes. In the previous video, we talked about period. In this video, we're going to include period in the problems, but the thing that's new is amplitude. Okay, so here we've got two multipliers, right? A is one of two transformations that's happening here. A is a vertical stretch, and we call that the amplitude of the graph. It's really the height of the sinusoidal curve, okay? B, which is going to give you the period, is a horizontal compression. So A is a vertical stretch, B is a horizontal compression. And the vocabulary, the specific vocabulary for sinusoidal curves that explain period and amplitude. All right, make sure all that's in your notes. We're going to do some problems. Here we have two problems to graph, okay? And again, we've got an A and we've got a B. There are two different transformations happening, right? So let me take first my A for this problem. A is 4. That means the amplitude is 4. The height of the waves is going to be 4. And B is 5. And B is going to help me determine the period. So the period is 2 pi over 5. Okay. Now it's telling me to graph it, and lucky for me, it's not telling me an interval over which to graph it. So that actually makes things easier for me, because I can set up my axes any way I want to, and I'm just going to set up my axes to reflect the most convenient points to show 2 cycles of this graph. All right. So here's my xy axis, and since one cycle is going to occur over 2 pi over 5, I'm going to graph from negative 2 pi over 5 to positive 2 pi over 5. All right, so between 0 and 2 pi over 5, I'm going to split that in half. Half of that would be pi over 5. And halfway between 0 and pi over 5 is pi over 10. And halfway between pi over 5 and 2 pi over 5 is 3 pi over, is it? Hold on, let me think about that. 2 pi, yes, it's 3 pi over 10. Okay, and now the reflection across the axis is symmetry, the reflection across the y-axis. Okay. All right, we're graphing, the y-axis. Since the amplitude is 4, these waves are going to reach a height of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and negative 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start by graphing the value of cosine of 0. Okay, if I plug a 0 in for t, we've got y equals 4. Okay, because this is a vertical stretch, so it goes all the way up to 4. Okay, so cosine of 0 is usually 1, but because of the transformation, we're multiplying by the amplitude of 4. Okay, so at our next marker, which is usually pi over 2, we've got a 0, okay? Again, because the period changed, because B changed the period and the frequency, this is now pi over 10. So I'm starting with the maximum at 0. I've got the first 0 at pi over 10. I've got a minimum at pi over 5, a 0 at 3 pi over 10, and then a maximum at 2 pi over 5. On the other side of the y-axis. I've got a 0, a minimum, a 0, a maximum. So connect the dots. Okay. All right, next problem. All right, for this problem, I've got A equals -3, okay? The negative is going to be a reflection across the x-axis, okay? But the amplitude is the absolute value of A. The amplitude is 3, okay? B is 2, and so therefore the period is 2 pi over 2. The period is pi. All right, I'm going to set up my axes. I should probably move that down a little bit. Okay, there are my axes. Oh, move that to the right a little bit. There we go. And since my period is pi, I'm going to graph this from -pi to +pi. Halfway between 0 and pi is pi over 2. Halfway between 0 and pi over 2 is pi over 4. Halfway between pi over 2 and pi is 3 pi over 4. And then the reflection of that across the y-axis. Since the amplitude is 3, I'm going to go up 3 on the y-axis and down 3. This is sine. Sine of 0 is 0. And of course, -3 times 0 is 0. So my first point is 0. Now, usually to the right of the origin, we're going to hit a maximum at the next marker. But because this is a reflection across the x-axis, we're going to hit a minimum. Okay? So that maximum that used to be at pi over 2 becomes a minimum because of the reflection across the axis of symmetry. And because the period has changed, it's now happening at pi over 4. We've got a 0 at the next marker, a maximum at the next marker, a 0 at the next marker. On the other side of the y-axis, I've got a maximum at -pi over 4, a 0 at -pi over 2, a minimum at -3 pi over 4, and then a 0 at -pi. Connect the dots. Okay, that's it.